Greetings, all. Week 4, here we are, farm to table. Hi, Chef Greg. Hi, class. How's everybody doing? Thumbs up. Shaky hands. I see. All right. Cool. Let's get this convo started from the get-go, and let's have a quick hands up, any questions or comments about the poêlée technique basting? How was it? Did you like it? What was your end result of the meat? Was it different? Or the protein that you cooked, was it different than you thought? Let's hear from you. Michelle, I see your hands up.
Yes, the parlay, it was, at first it was kind of frustrating make sure there's no air and fold it properly. But other than that, it was really simple. You just pop it in the oven and it just cooks itself, and it was so tender and delicious. I mean, everybody, because I had guests that week, and everybody ate it, even the greens that they don't eat. Do what?
I think you might be talking about papilote.
You said the what?
Poêlée. So poêlée is the basting.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was still thinking about the cooking in the wet.
You're thinking about papilote, yeah. Michelle always works ahead, so she got ahead of herself on it. But P is a French word, I get it. So do you remember anything about the basting poêlée that you liked?
Yes, it was easy, and the pork chop was real tender. And my husband wants me to make more pork chops that way from now on.
Awesome. Yeah, I think sometimes when we experience a new technique of cooking a meat, or a fish, any protein, it's like, yeah, I want to eat it more often like this in this preparation, because it adds that juiciness, the flavor, moistness. Blake, I see your hands up. Blake, yeah.
Yeah, I did when I did mine, and then I did carrots and new potatoes, basted those together, and then sliced my pork chop and then panned it out or shingled across the vegetables. And then I had a little balsamic drizzle that I drizzled across the pork chop. And it was awesome.
Awesome. It sounds delicious. Nice choice on the baby potatoes and carrots. Sturdy enough that you can get some baste, and that fat really goes into the ingredient to cook it, right? Items taste different when we're adding hot fat to cook, compared to deep frying, where you just immerse and it's a quick thing. It's lacquering over, it's building layers of flavor. It's slowly cooking each layer. So it really results in a different texture and flavor profile.
I want to tell you too, I made a garlic herb butter, and that's what I used to baste with.
Yeah, there you go. But like always, butter, and remember, the great thing about poêlée and pan basting is that you remove the protein or the vegetables from the fat, right? It doesn't have to stick. So if you need to add a little bit more to get that rhythm going, to get that where your wrist is moving and you're sliding it over, in the end, you do remove it from the fat source. So it's okay if you need to add a little bit more butter as well. Cool. Andrea, I saw she had her hand up, but now it's gone. So if you have a question, come on back. Otherwise,
I was just going to say I did.
Yes.
I was just going to say I did the same thing, but I made a sweet potato and carrots, and then I cut up my pork chop and fanned it out as well. I wasn't sure if we were allowed to make an extra sauce. I thought we had to stick straight to the recipe.
Obviously, want you definitely executing the recipe that we've provided. For your plate up, if you want to add a little garnish or a sauce, please do, because that could be something from a balsamic glaze reduction to a little bit of a coulis. Again, you don't want to masquerade your dish, right? The technique we're learning is poêlée, so that you really want to make sure that that's the focus. But if once we've seen all of your technical photos of execution photos of getting from point A to point B, right? If you want to add a little garnish, go for it. Okay, and you can always take a before photo and then feel comfortable with.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Carrie, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we never eat pork chops in our house without mashed potatoes. So I made mashed potatoes and laid mine on top of the mashed potatoes and then put the veggies around it. And I did use a garnish. I garnished it with green onions because that's something that, like, I know everybody in my house will eat. So just to answer the other, whoever just asked the other question, I always embellish mine in the end, just for the plate, just to, because we're learning technique as well. We're learning how to do plates. So I always do that. So I just wanted to say what I did.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. Chef Greg, any observations from your end?
There was just a ton of good work this week. I saw a ton of butter, which is a beautiful thing. No, everybody did a great job. It is something that's time consuming. Depending on where you go for your externship or what you choose to do for your career, you may see it or you may not. Of course, everybody knows by now it's a delicious technique, but sometimes in the restaurant industry, if it's a Friday night and you're in the middle of 300 covers, it's not necessarily always possible to be basting everything to finish it with butter, but it's a great technique to learn, because I hope everybody could see, if you remember back when we did searing in 101, when we seared a pork chop and now we're basting a pork chop, it does make it immensely better. So a ton of good work this week.
Woohoo! Awesome. Way to go, everybody. Great. Cool. Well, with that said and done, let us move into this week 4. As you know, we are in farm to table class. So we're talking about sustainability. We talk about farms. We're talking about how we get produce from point A to point B to into a distribution center, onto the plate. What does it take to get there? So I'm going to pull up this week's class, this class, and excuse me. Let's get in here. I think this should be it. There we go. So here we are, week 4. Your research materials is this article, okay? This article that is provided by environmentalscience.org. This is going to give you a very general overview of what sustainability means, okay? Now, sustainability is not only applied to the restaurant industry. It is applied to all industries. It's applied to economy, community. Pretty much everything that's on the earth can be considered sustainable or not sustainable. In the end, what does sustainable mean? It means that it's never ending, that there's always, it's essentially a cycle, that we're not gonna run out. If we use up all the water, we don't have any water left. Is that sustainable? No, because now we've used everything and we no longer have water. Same goes for fuel or electricity or vegetables, produce. What if, let's go take a little trip to the farm. What if we take out all of the nutrients from the soil? What if we pull out all the nutrients from the soil and we don't replenish them? Is that sustainable? No, because now those vegetables are not getting the nutrients. So we've pulled it all out. Sorry. So as you'll continue to go downwards, you'll see the 3 pillars of sustainability, which is economic development, okay? Social development. So think about that like as a community, okay? Economic development can also be community related. And then environmental protection. So what are our resources? Land, water, what do we do with them? How do we use them? And then the primary goals of sustainability. Essentially, again, this is talking about sustainability in general, not only to the restaurant industry, okay? So get into this. It can be, break it down. It can be, there might be some words that you're thinking, wait, what's going on? But don't worry, just break this article down. You're going to get a better grip and a better understanding of what sustainability really means and how it affects our restaurants, our industry that we are a part of, because we use environmental resources, okay? So check that out, get into it. And if you have any questions about it, or if you're not understanding the concepts of sustainability, please feel free to reach out to me and I can help you get a deeper understanding. But we're talking about really how this relates to crops and agriculture. So if you pull up this is the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. I'm going to put this in the chat box right now. Once I get it. Shoot, there we go, messed that up, but we'll be back. This is all about cover crops. Now, the reason why we're talking about cover crops is because cover crops are very important to crop rotation and how we grow our vegetables, okay? Because they replenish nutrients that have been taken out, okay? Now, common cover crops, legumes. We remember legumes, right? All of those great lentils and peas and peanuts, all of that falls into the legume category, okay? You have winter cover crops, field peas. Some of these are going to be edible, some of them are not. Some of them are strictly to give back nutrients into the soil, okay? Cowpeas. Who knows what a cowpea is? Soybean. Who's heard of these? These are very common. Alfalfa sprouts, clover, grasses. We've got rye, we have oats, buckwheat, brassicas. What are brassicas? Remember the brassica family? Mustards, radish. So all of these crops help give back to the soil, which allows for our earth to maintain nutrients and give back nutrients into our bodies, right? So it's a cycle. This is what sustainability is about giving, taking, always replenishing. Now, why are we talking about cover crops? Because this week you are going to be utilizing 2 cover crops to make dishes, okay? To understand the importance and how maybe you just think it's a cover crop, but it has a lot more use to it. So here we are in week 4. This is the assignment. We're going to get more into sustainability, but I want to talk about this because we're talking about cover crops right now. You are going to be making granola, which uses oats, which is a cover crop, and you're going to also be making a cold bean salad, which uses legumes as a cover crop. When you pull up your recipe for honey granola, see, it's quite simple. Minimal ingredients, very straightforward method. If you'd like to add or switch out one of your dried fruits, perhaps, like the raisins with craisins or dried cranberries, or your almonds with walnuts, because you can't find them, go for it. But this is just a very straightforward, streamlined, classic recipe for granola. And let me tell you, the first time you make your own granola, you are kind of going to go nuts because it is crunchy. You have control of it. You see this wet, sticky mass transform into this crunchy heaven, okay? Just lightly laced with spice. Now, one thing to take note when you're doing this, sometimes you might need to pull, if you find your oven is not heating correctly, you might get hotter spots and it starts to brown around the edge. If that happens, you're gonna wanna pull that out, mix it around, okay? So that you don't get burned edges. Another thing to take note, you wanna make sure that it is crunchy, okay? And that then you do not store it when it is hot. You must let that cool completely down to room temperature. Then you can put it into a sealed container. Otherwise, you're not gonna have crunchy granola. You're gonna have sticky, soft granola. Does anybody have any questions about granola? I don't think so. Do I see any hands up? I don't think so. Nope. Okay. Oh, Michelle. Yes, Michelle.
This. I actually, as you know, already made it, and I just went to go get it to show you guys because it is so yummy. I've been snacking on it. I actually made another batch, but here's mine.
Awesome. Great color. That looks really good. You'll see that you want to make sure that it's all when you're coating it, that is equally distributed. That's another key component when you're making the granola, because you're going to be taking this mixture of honey and butter, and you want to drizzle that over, make sure you get nice equal distribution on your oats. All right, let's hop into your mixed bean salad. Now, you have two options here. You can either go for the gold and take your peas from hard, dry, soak them, cook, and then make them, or you can shortcut, depending on time and what you have available to you, go for canned. Okay, so there's your option for that. Now, here you see. Remember last week we were talking about peeling your tomatoes, and Chef Greg gave that great example of how to actually peel tomatoes. Be sure you're using that technique when you're doing it this time. Peel, seed, and small dice. We are going to be looking at your knife cuts. You've got brunoise there. Let's make sure that brunoise looks good, okay? If you can't find, you can, if you find green and or black olives with the pit, the seed in it, obviously remove those before you slice. If you find them already pitted, that's also okay. If you can't find one or the other, increase your amount of your olives. To black. Now, here's something to note. Your mustard vinaigrette calls for 4 ounces. If you're looking for that recipe, all you have to do, hold on, let me pull this up. Get into your textbook, okay? You've got full access to Gislin. So check out right there, page 670. You've got your basic vinaigrette, and flow down a little bit lower, mustard vinaigrette right there. So add that, right? And you can see add 1 to 2 ounces of prepared mustard, French or Dijon type, to the basic recipe. So now let's look at this. If you are only going to need 4 ounces of the vinaigrette, you can get away with having your basic vinaigrette recipe, or actually even making 1/4 of that, right? Because you're going to yield 4 cups of vinaigrette if you make this full recipe, 1 quart. All you need is 4 ounces. So whether you like a vinaigrette and you want to keep it around, you're going to say, I'm going to make a half batch or a 1/4 batch, because then you'd have 1 cup as your yield. Just add that. You're going to use 1/4 of that. All right. So know that you do not need to make the entire recipe. You need to make the recipe that will get you 4 ounces of your mustard vinaigrette. Okay. Again, that's on page 670 in Gislin. Now, here we go. Does anybody have any questions about that?
2 hands up, Chef. Michelle and Blake.
Got it. Yes, Blake.
That's what I was going to ask you on the mustard vinaigrette. If we can use, I have a recipe for it. I didn't know if we could use it, or you want us to use one out of the book. I've got one from the restaurant up in Iowa, so.
I would say use the one out of the book, just so we keep it consistent, and that way when we're evaluating photos, your ratios are going to look, will match the correct recipe.
Yeah.
Okay. Michelle.
Yeah, it's funny because, my husband doesn't eat beans. I'm like, just shut up and try it. And he ended up eating the rest of it because I made a full batch. And I was like, oh, I thought you didn't like beans. So the tricky part is hiding the pate, the offa, when it comes up, hiding the ingredients and making it before he gets home, and don't tell him what it is. Just shut up and eat it, and then I'll tell you.
Yep, there you go. So we can, it's incredible what we can do when we just open our minds a little bit and say, hey, let me try this, because you never know what dish is going to change and turn you on to something that maybe you didn't like before. I know I had that experience with mushrooms. I used to think mushrooms were gross when I was a young child, and eventually I had some, and from that point on, loved them, right? So it's all about changing our perception of what we think we know as a certain flavor profile. So yeah, does anybody have any questions about that, either one of those? Now, when you're talking about plating, there is no...
You're on mute, Chef.
Thank you. Just pulling that up, I wanted to see, want to make sure that it's not.
It's finished products of both, so it could be in a bowl or a platter, a container.
Yes, there we go. So yeah, you will want to, there we go, I've got it now. Thank you. You will want to have all of these. So we're going to see that mise en place for that mustard vinaigrette as well, okay? Just like you made that vinaigrette in CU122, 1/3 oil added, 2/3 oil added, and then the finished vinaigrette, showing a proper emulsion, whisking by hand again. And then of course your finished product. So if you want to just show that finished product in a bowl, if you want to do something more to it by putting, say, a full spread together and showing us all of that, you can as well, but we do need to see the finished product. And then of course your narrative and reflection sheet as always. We are having some weird issues with the knowledge check this week. I don't know if it will be resolved. There should be more questions. However, right now there's only one. So the tech team is working on this, and we will see, but otherwise, if you see that there's only one knowledge check question, that means there only is for that one. So
excuse me, Chef, there
yes.
was only one for last week too. Was that supposed to be, or did I miss one?
Last week there were 3, I believe, but if you only got one for last week, who was talking? And I can look this up.
Andrea
Sargent. Okay,
I'm trying to go back and look now. Yeah, I only had my conversions knowledge check. Right?
Oh no, yeah, there was only conversions for last week, but you're.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
okay.
So this one you have conversions knowledge check and your regular knowledge check. It's just that the knowledge check has only one question.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for letting me know. We've got some growing pains going on here, guys and gals.
Chef, I just took it and just one did pop up. So.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I guess that hasn't been updated. So if I were you, I'd get in there and knock it out now. So you're getting that, get it right. It's an easy shot right there, guys and gals. All right. I would recommend coming back and checking on it later in the class, this week, to see if any other questions have popped up. I will also let you know if I find out any information that has been updated. Otherwise, it will be only that one question. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about. Excuse me, I am so sorry. About sustainability in outside of cover crops, okay? We're obviously utilizing cover crops is essential, but let's talk a little bit more about sustainability in the restaurants, okay? Let's put it out there. Who has some ideas or thoughts of how a restaurant can be sustainable? How can we be sustainable as a restaurant? What can we do? What do you think the number one quickest way to help out and be more sustainable is? It has to do with food.
Cross-utilization.
Cross-utilization is definitely a good way to reduce blank. What do we think that I'm looking for? Cross-utilization is part of it, 100%. Like the overall food waste, yes, food waste. Food waste is going to be one of your number one easiest, quickest ways to work on sustainability in your restaurant. If you work on your food waste, you work on food cost control. How does that affect it? So, how do we reduce food waste? Cross utilization. Yeah, Blake already said that. What else? You had another one, Blake?
Yeah, we did at the restaurant in Iowa. We would use all of our trimmings, and when we were doing our carrots and stuff, and we used all of our trimmings to make our au jus sauce.
Awesome, exactly. So taking what would be considered a waste product, normally thrown into the trash, and turning that into an item that can be used as profit. Okay? Adding flavor. Composting. This is another way that you can add to food waste reduction. Now, is it still getting thrown out? Yes, but it is being transformed into another byproduct, which then can go to plants, feed animals, all of these. Do you see how there starts to be a cycle? If you just dump it into the garbage, you're not getting compost. You're not getting those nutrients from it. So by composting, you transform a waste product into a valued product. I'm going to pull up this slide.
There's a restaurant chef.
A restaurant, yeah.
There's a restaurant that I was reading online that does. They grow all their own herbs, and they compost, and they use for compost in their big herb garden that they have for the restaurant.
Yes, exactly. So there it is, right? That's showing how it's staying right in-house. You're taking your food waste, turning it into compost, utilizing that to help grow your herbs. That is a part of sustainability because the cycle does not end. It replenishes one another. Okay, so let me pull this up because this is pretty cool. This is from, let's see, the National Restaurant Association from last year. I pulled this information and I want to show you all this slideshow. This is a smaller version of their pamphlet that was distributed. So, sustainability in the hospitality industry. Here we go. All right, let's take a look at some numbers. Here we go. Uh-oh, whoopsies, we messed up there. What can we recycle? Cardboard and paper, fats, oils, and grease, aluminum or metal cans, rigid plastics, glass. What about food waste? Tracking food waste, donating leftover food, or composting food waste. This is a percentage of restaurants that recycle these things. So as you can see, cardboard and fats and oils are your number one items that are recycled, okay? Hopping down into food waste, most of the, you've got 22% that are donating leftover food. That's huge. That says a lot. Leftover food can go to feed others that are in need. Now look at energy and water, low flow, okay? So now you start thinking about this, wait, there's a bigger picture here. How do I control my waste? How do I control? What do I do? What can I do to be a contributor? Or do I care? Does it affect my bottom line? What do I want to do? Do I have the infrastructure set up to put these into play in my restaurant or not? Do I have a recycling company that can swing by? Do I have a composting company that's going to come by and pick up waste? Is there a farm that I can give my compost to? There's a lot of other great stats. I will put this in the class page for us so everybody can take a look at this a little bit more in depth. But I think you'll be really surprised to see how many restaurants are actually doing. What are they doing? Look at this. 9% of operators compost both back of house and front of house food waste. So 9%, not huge, right? But look at this. 39% of restaurants are not composting food waste because of a lack of a composting facility. So if we started to change our infrastructure and had more composting facilities, well, guess what? We would change that percentage. Okay? Donating leftover food. How do you do it? Where can you do it? Certain states have different regulations. But again, think about how much you might prep out for a huge party and you have all this leftover food. Where does it go? Does it go to staff? Are the guests taking it home? or can it be donated while ensuring that all proper temperatures are marked and notated, and then given in good faith, donated to anything from a shelter to halfway house to anyone that has a facility that can use access free food. Food safety and donations. This gets into what you have to do. 54% of them are concerned about liability and food safety. They don't want to get somebody sick. It's easier for them to dump it in the trash than to risk getting a lawsuit. Okay, another thing, here we go, the benefits of food donation. So again, like I said, I'm gonna share this with you. You can really take a deeper dive into it. Gives you just a breakdown of recycling, water saving equipment, low flow, low flush, high efficiency. How do we do that? You'll see more and more restaurants are trending. And as technology, and we'll get into purchasing and packaging and supplies as well. As technology advances, more things become possible, okay? When we look at packaging, we talked about this briefly before. What are you using? What type of packaging are you actually using? Is it styrofoam? Is it plastic? Is it recyclable? Is it made from bamboo? Utensils. What about napkins? Are you using linens? What about in the bathroom? Are you using high airflow hair dryers and you don't have to buy paper towels? You also have to think about the customer. What do they want? Maybe you want to provide the option. Half of them are going to use hand dryers. The other are going to use paper towel. Does anybody have any question? I know I've just covered a lot, but we're talking about sustainability on the whole. And as I stated, sustainability is a big picture. It's about the community. It's about economic development, and it's about not depleting resources. I see Bradley saying that the casino that he works out does not allow food donation due to the local sanitation coordinator. So every area is going to have very different laws, rules, and regulations. He continued to say that we wanted to donate lunch buffet items and to transfer to nursing homes and shelters. So rather, okay, yeah.
Part of the reason for that is that if somebody just like a food shelter or a if you're just donating food and somebody's picking it up, you're responsible for it, but you can't control it. So if somebody comes and picks it up in a van, it may be at 33 degrees when you gave it to them, but it might be in the middle of the summer like it is now, and they might make 15 stops. Then they might take a lunch break, and then they get back to their place and they don't have enough refrigeration, so they leave some of it out. If they serve that the next day and they get sick, you get blamed for it, and you can actually bring on a lawsuit. And Bradley, that's why they do that, is because they don't want to be liable. It's a sad thing. It's horrible. However, they don't want to risk having the lawsuit and being reliable for somebody not handling the food properly. If they don't reheat it to 165, if they don't hold it above 145, all of those things can get people sick. Unfortunately, a lot of elderly people do have compromised immune systems. They do have a little bit lower of the strength of an immune system. And if they get sick from not reheating something, the casino would be liable, and it's not worth the risk to them. That's why.
Exactly. Thank you, Chef.
Yep.
So there is risk involved with that. You have to make sure that under your law, your state law and legislation, that if you find a company, there are a lot of companies that will be that go-between, that will pick it up, maintain those temps, taking photos, documenting it, and donating it so that it's tracked along the way. That's the only way to make successful donations, to ensure that you have a third party that is tracking all those variables, time and temperature, that can affect food safety. Okay, now let's talk about this human component about sustainability. What do we think is sustainable? This is a big conversation right now. in the restaurant industry about minimum wage. What is fair pay? What is sustainable? What about healthcare, insurance? Is it sustainable to have people working in a dangerous conditions such as hot oil, fire, flames, sharp knives without insurance? Is that sustainable? What about who are harvesting all of our produce? Who's doing that? Migrant farm workers, farm laborers. What's the condition of their lives? Do we need to think about the full idea of sustainability? Yeah, because it trickles down to every component. It's not just, oh, well, I sourced locally. Is that a great first step? Indeed it is, because now you're building up your economy, your local community's economy. But if you're sourcing from a place that has really bad treatment, poor treatment of laborers, what does that help? Or is that counteractive? So this is the idea of sustainability is really kind of a big picture idea. How do we start to chip away at it? Why is this so important right now in restaurants industries? Because I guarantee if you put a Google search in for sustainable restaurants, you're going to find a ton of articles about what's trending, what's important, what are they doing. That's the National Restaurant Association show that I just pulled a pamphlet from last year. It's an entire pamphlet on ways to be sustainable because guess what? Consumers are driving forces. They create demands. If your restaurant, say Chef Greg has a restaurant and I have a restaurant right next door, both of us are cranking out delicious food, okay? But Chef Greg is recycling, he's composting, and he uses bread from the local bakery. On the other hand, I'm not recycling, I'm not composting, but I'm using that bread from that local bakery too. Guess what? There are going to be some consumers, some customers that are going to say, I don't want to go to Chef Catherine's place. She doesn't even recycle or compost. Chef Greg's restaurant does, and the food's just as good. So you have to be competitive in this industry and know that there are demands that consumers are looking at that are important. They are the ones who are using their dollars. So it's a voting power. They're going to use their dollars to buy something that they believe in. This trend is not going away. You'll also see that equipment. Think about equipment, all the equipment in a restaurant that it takes to run. If you have really old machines that are chugging along and burning up a lot of energy, not as sustainable, increasing your costs, your electric bill. It costs a lot to run these machines and heavy equipment. Again, really big picture stuff here. Read before you get too overwhelmed with the concept. Read the research material about sustainability. Get that general picture of what we're talking about. Then start looking at it, how it affects the restaurant industry. I'm going to put a few links right now here in the chat, which is here we've got one from, now it's from 2016, but this is, so it's a few years dated, but the most sustainable, hopefully that'll work, you never know, I might have messed that up. 10 most, you even just do a Google search of most sustainable restaurants, okay? Here is QSR magazine. If you don't know about QSR magazine, get to know it, okay? There are a lot of important sources of information in the restaurant industry that will help you be a more successful restaurateur, chef, everything. Nation's Restaurant News, National Restaurant Association, Slow Food Movement, QSR Magazine. Any topic that you want, you can find a group that's doing it, okay? And make sure they're good quality sources. If you're just pulling from a blog, blogs are biased. So make sure you're going to a reputable source when you're looking for information. Everybody has their own agenda, but these are some good places to start. Here's also, if you want to learn a little bit more about cover crops, it's a bit more on the science side, but it's what I pulled up earlier. Does anybody have any questions about this concept of sustainability that we can address? Okay, is anybody confused about sustainability? Any question? There's nothing wrong with asking anything. No? Okay. Chef Greg, did you have any comments on sustainability that you wanted to talk about or address?
I think the biggest thing that when you're talking about sustainability as a business, it's something else that's sustainable. Whether you want to be an owner or an executive chef, your business needs to be sustainable first. It needs to be able to make a profit for you to go on and to develop and to pay your staff, to buy food, all those things. So all of these programs, a lot of them can work to your advantage. You can have companies that come and pick up your used fryer oil for free. They turn it into a biodiesel. So you don't have to pay for, you're doing something good, and then you don't have to pay for that service to get rid of your fryer oil. Same thing with food recycling. Thinking about food waste. If you can use things, if you took all of your onion tops and peppers and all that stuff and you made kimchi per week, there's so many things that you can use out of that. If you just did your caramelized onions out of onion tops, how much caramelized onions could you get? It would depend on your usage, of course, and they cook down. But it really is thinking about ways to make the business sustainable as a whole. And that's a huge part about being a chef now. When Chef Catherine was talking about the 2 restaurants, hers and I's, and one recycles and one doesn't, that's marketability now. You can market yourself on that. You can put it right on the door. You can even see on like TripAdvisor, things like that. You can get awards for your area to be the biggest recycler restaurant in your area. Those are just marketability things that you put on the door. They get more people in, more people come in, more money, and then again, more sustainable. So what kind of like changed from being a chef, it was, of course, it's always about your food and tasting good, but now it's the responsibility of being a chef outside of your food tasting good is just so much more. And that's pretty much like everything we talked about today is you have to know that when somebody comes into your restaurant and asks about food recycling and sustainability, where does your product come from? What did the chicken eat? Like, you have to know all those things now. And that's how business works. And that is supply and demand, just like Chef said. If the customers didn't demand it, then we wouldn't have to supply it.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you, Chef. So what do people think? Let's just get a little feedback. If anybody wants to say about what do you think would be the easiest? I asked you before, but let's just make sure you're on time. What's the first way to control, to be a contributor to sustainability? What is it? We talked about it in the beginning of class.
You have a compost in?
Compost. Compost is important. Yeah. Food waste. Food waste, food waste, food waste. That is your biggest way to go. Think about this. I once had a chef who would, I'm sure Chef Greg had this as well. When you're prepping, we're talking about yields. So whether you're peeling your carrots, or you're lopping off top and bottom, you're making your cuts. How much are you throwing out? You should set up a little waste bucket on your station. That's what my one chef did. Everybody had a little waste bucket that you would put your waste in, your food waste in, so that he could track. How much was that container filled up? Was it filled up to the top? Were you down here? What are your knife skills? Knife skills, right? It comes down to all of this. Utilization of product. How are you cutting? And when you're trimming and slicing your and portioning your fish, how are you doing that? Are you getting good yields? Are you utilizing that? All these factors.
I was just going to piggyback off of that. We had a waste not program at work, and our systems were very advanced. So when you punched out during your shift, you took your bucket up to the recycling thing where the punch clock was, and you put in it knew which station you were working in for your schedule, and you put in how many quarts. And then that actually went into our system, and it deducted it or added it into your par sheets, your recipes. It deducted it out of our food cost. It was totally involved just from putting, they had 6 quarts of waste, would adjust how many onions that we needed to order in 3 days. So it definitely was very, very important.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I see Blake's hand up. What's up, Blake?
Well, I was going to say, we worked, they actually had like one of the brand new Rubbermaid trash cans with a lid on it that sit in the freezer. And we'd take all of our stuff, all of our trim number 2, and dump it in there, leftovers. And then we had a pig farmer that would come pick it up once a week.
That's huge. Food waste to go to pig farmers is one of the biggest flows of traffic that you're going to see with food waste. These programs are out there, which is great. There's a green food revolution happening right now. You all are in the midst of it. This wasn't happening 30 years ago. It simply was not, but it is happening here and now. And that is really also because of the earth is in a fragile place. We have to start saying, hey, we got to take care of this. We got to look after our next generations, right? Because guess what? If we don't look out after future generations, it ends, which is not sustainable, okay? So I see, Amber, your hand up.
Going off with Blake, we have a little compost bin thingy when I used to work in produce at a grocery store, and we got all the like cantaloupe rinds and all that food, all the extra food we had, I went bad, and we gave it to like farmers, and we actually had someone work there. She had chickens, so we gave it all to him or them.
Yeah, chickens are another great source. Basically, just not letting, if we just dump all this food into landfills, we're not getting value out of it. By composting it and turning it into another product, we get double use out of it. That's what it's all about. Few other things. There's a place, has anybody seen any ads? It might go under a different name, but it's called, and where I am, I think it's called Imperfect Produce. Has anybody heard of that? Well, let me just pull it up so you can get a look at this real quickly. When we talk about produce and we see what is expected to have in the grocery store, right? These perfect apples, these perfect carrots, no blemishes, perfect shape, doesn't meet this quality. What about all of the ones that are a little ugly, right? The carrots that are entwined and the odd-shaped kiwi, those don't make market demand, so they normally are getting thrown out. However, with companies like this, Imperfect Produce, they are changing this. Look, healthy, delicious groceries for up to 30% less than the store and delivered to your door. Do you see this? They're a little bit, they don't meet the quality that we expect to see. So 40 million pounds of food have been saved from the dumpster from this company alone by selling somebody an avocado that looks like this as opposed to a perfect one. Can we imagine if these companies had not started to change the infrastructure and how we do business? There are humans all around the world who are dying of starvation, right? Well, maybe that's because we've been dumping millions of food and not utilizing it. So again, really big picture stuff, but start thinking about where your food comes from. How does it go there? Why does it all look a certain way? What happens to the ugly fruit? Where does it go? What can we do? Look at that, 110 million pounds of carbon dioxide saved. Just incredible, 1.2 billion gallons of water saved because that fruit and vegetable just didn't get thrown away. Okay, here's another company, 0%. I actually used to work for this company for a brief stint in time. Let's see if it's, I don't think that's gonna give what I want. No, I don't think this is it. That's not the one. But they were a company that came in and did food donations. So if a restaurant signed up, we would go, we would pick up the leftover food, and we would take that, insulate it to different locations that were in need of food. So there are a ton of ways to be a part of the sustainability movement. Whether it's as the first simple state of saying, what can I do that's easy? Composting. Maybe I can't switch out my plastic containers for bamboo yet. Maybe I can't get low flow toilets yet because I don't have the money, the capital to buy those, because I have old toilets and they work fine. But food waste is your number one most easily controlled way to be a part of this game. Food waste, food waste, food waste. More than anything else. Plus, it changes your bottom line. And all be all. All right? Because food waste is money you're just throwing away. Okay. Any other last questions or comments? Just Greg, any last comment?
No, I think we covered a lot of good stuff today.
Okay. Well, right on. Class, if anybody has any question, please do not hesitate to reach out. As always, we are here. And enjoy the granola and beans, a little bit lighter fare this week. New techniques. Remember, when you do use acid in a salad, that does have an effect on those grains or either legumes that you're using. Also, remember how when it sits for a couple hours, that vinaigrette starts to meld into those beans, right? It soaks it up, just like you might make a dish and you taste it the next day and it's a lot better. You say, how did that happen? It's because the flavors developed. They started marrying, okay? That's the same thing. I would say, take a little bit out, taste it raw, and then take that later and notice how it changes, the flavor, the texture, everything. Other than that, enjoy, reach out, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, real quick, will you, if they add more to the knowledge check, more questions, will you let us know?
I will send out a message. I have a feeling since they weren't added yet that they might not be until at least Friday or next block. So I will let you know if and when I hear anything. Other than that, keep submitting early, submit on time, keep rocking it out, guys and gals. You're all doing an awesome job. Keep up the passion, keep enjoying, keep cooking. Remember, there's nowhere you can't go within the culinary world, all right?
Jeff, are you going to share your slides you showed tonight?
Pardon me?
Are you going to share your slides?
Yes, I'll put that slide on the class page, and then you guys can all have access to it because it's pretty cool. All right, I'll do that right after class. Promised. All right. Good night, Chef Greg. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, chefs.